Hey everyone! So firstly, this was not the intro you were meant to be getting, but the intro I recorded for this video looks like this.
All the gear.
So I decided that I can't really put that on the internet because it looks so bad. So here I am, just going to talk you through what the video is going to be about. In this video, I'll talk to you about gym accessories and the most common bits of equipment you'll see people buy to help them with their lifting. I'm going to talk you through whether they're any good, if you need to use them, and more importantly, how to use them. So enjoy the rest of the video, and the rest of it is better than this.
Okay, first up is our lifting belt. This is probably the most common gym accessory you'll see people wear. What a lot of those people will tell you is that it supports your lower back, whatever that means. But I can tell you that the supporting of the lower back isn't done from the belt, it's done from the bracing. So if you're doing heavy deadlifts or heavy back squats, you should know how to brace. We're going to save that for a different video if you don't know. What we do when we brace is that we create something called IAP, which is intra-abdominal pressure. What this does, it just means our whole core, which isn't just our abs, it's our erector muscles in our lower back as well, is nice and tight to protect us from the heavy load that we're exerting upon it, okay? Now, a belt is what we call an external cue. An external cue is quite simply a cue that's outside of the body. So I'm not generating it intrinsically myself. It's something that's physical, outside the body. And what this does is that if you brace correctly, you will feel it almost feel like it's tightening, okay? All you're doing is breathing against the belt, and that external cue is telling you you're bracing correctly because you're feeling the belt get tighter. So if you're feeling your belt get tighter before you lift and you prepare to lift, then you're probably bracing correctly. If you're putting your belt on and it's still not feeling too much different, then the likelihood is you can't brace, okay? When do you need a lifting belt? You want a lifting belt when you're probably a bit more of an advanced lifter and you're going into some heavy 1 rep max sort of territory weights, okay? Beginners shouldn't be using a lifting belt straight away because you should be able to get the form for a deadlift and squat, etc. nailed before you then add in this external cue. Otherwise, it might just result in some poor habits when it comes to your form, which you definitely don't want on these big lifts. Next, we have lifting straps. So what these are used for is primarily helping you with pulling-based movements where your grip strength is going to be a limiting factor in the maximal weight that you can lift, okay? So we're going to use a deadlift as an example again. The way you use these straps will be you put them obviously on your wrist. You want to make sure that the strap is going in line with the lines in the palm of your hand. So as you can see, the lines in the palm of my hand, and then I've got the strap going in between my thumb and my first finger, like so. Then what you need to make sure you're doing is that you're wrapping the strap under the bar. You don't go over, you go under the bar. And all you've got to do is twist it towards you. You should feel it tighten, and then you should be locked in to use those straps, okay? So as I say, this will help you with pulling movements where the weight is the main priority. Worth noting, if you always use straps in all your pulling movements, so you use them on all your rows, even your pull-ups or your deadlifts, etc., all of them, you will obviously sacrifice a bit of grip strength and a bit of full arch strength that comes without using straps. So it's not something I'd recommend doing for every set, but maybe for like your heavy set of deadlifts, if your main priority is simply how much weight you can lift, then you can throw the straps in. I don't tend to use straps for things like pull-ups or anything like that, just because I think body weight and things like that you should be able to do yourself. But yeah, here's some straps. Don't use them for everything, but these can reduce the toll on your grip strength. Okay, next up are wrist wraps as opposed to straps. The difference between these two is that straps are used for predominantly pulling movements. Wraps going to be used for your pressing movements, like your bench press, your military press, or anything overhead, anything like that. The reason you can use wrist wraps is because they give your wrist a bit more support, and what that means is that as you're coming down on the bench press, for example, it's really hard for me to actually flex my wrist back at all. If I don't have a strap on, you see it's much easier for my wrist to come back. So that's just going to mean they're a bit less strong. It could lead to a couple of injuries if we're doing some heavier weights. Similar to the belt I said earlier, I don't think you should be using wrist wraps if you absolutely can't lift at all without them. If there's literally no weight you can do without the wraps, then you shouldn't be using them, so you probably have a bigger underlying issue there. But if you're doing some heavy sets of any sort of pressing movements, you can throw these in and they could help you just get a little bit more out of it. On we have knee sleeves. So as the name suggests, these are going to go around your knees. Shock horror. But what these are going to do, they're going to feel quite tight. And the reason for that is because these are essentially going to keep the temperature a little bit warmer around the knee and then potentially promote some more blood flow as well. The idea of this is that in between sets, you're not going to cool down as much and you're less likely to get injuries around the knees, which are very common pain points for people, okay? Another thing that knee sleeves do, at the bottom of a squat, the elasticity of the knee sleeve can just give you that little bit of an extra bounce out of the hole, which is the bottom of the squat, which is the hardest part of the lift, which could obviously then mean you might be able to lift a little bit more weight, okay? But predominantly, these are used just to keep the temperature a little bit higher around the knee, just to reduce the risk of injury. Are these something you need? You absolutely don't need them, but you'll see a lot of Olympic weightlifters and powerlifters wear these. So if you're doing a lot of heavy work on squatting-based movements, such as heavy cleans, back squats, front squats, then it might be worth investing in a pair of knee sleeves just to help keep your knees a bit warmer. Okay, next one is a dip belt. So just because it's called a dip belt doesn't mean it just needs to be used for dips. I primarily actually use these for pull-ups and weighting pull-ups, okay? So the way you simply do this is you can add load to bodyweight movements just to increase overload, which obviously is good for muscle building, strength development, and over time it's just a good way of progressing the movement, tracking your progress, okay? So all you do, as you can see, you just loop a weight. It can be a kettlebell or a plate. It could even be a dumbbell as well. Loop a weight through the chain. Make sure the belt's sitting on your hips. It's going to feel like it's a bit loose, but that's fine. It's not going to come off. And then just do your movement, whether it's dips or pull-ups. It's a really good way of making these movements even more advanced. But you don't need to worry about this. If you can't do pull-ups or dips, you can't do sets of 10 to 15 pretty comfortably, then maybe don't even think about this, because you don't want to be making it too hard for yourself straight away. You want to be able to get competent at the base movement before we start adding load to that. Okay, and the last one I'm going to go through today is weightlifting shoes or lifters. So the difference between these and the normal shoes that you'll lift in, such as your Metcons or your Converse or whatever you wear, you see some all sorts of weird and wonderful shoes now. Sliders as well for the roadmen out there. So lifters, essentially, the heel was raised. So you might hear people before, they tell you to raise your heels on some small plates when you do back squats. That just increases the ankle mobility, which might mean you're able to get a little bit lower and sink a bit deeper into the squat. Okay, so that's the sort of premise with the lifters. It's just a bit more of a stable version than that. So the idea of these is that it makes it a little bit easier to get low in your squat, but it also should mean you're more stable than you usually are, because the material here is really, really hard. Okay, it's way harder than any shoe you'd be wearing, which means that you've just got a much more stable base to be able to squat heavy with, essentially. Hence why you'll see a lot of people who do Olympic weightlifting, so heavy cleans and heavy back squats as well. The Velcro around the midsection of the foot is going to keep you nice and locked in as well, so there's not going to be much slipping at all with these shoes. So these are really good if you're looking to do heavy squats a lot or Olympic weightlifting. Again, do you need these? Absolutely not. You can get some really, really heavy squat numbers without any of these pieces of kit, okay? Same if you're Olympic weightlifting. But I would say, especially if you do a lot of cleans and snatches regularly, these are definitely a worthwhile investment. Squats, you're more likely to get away with if you don't do any Olympic weightlifting, but I definitely recommend these for Olympic weightlifting. So there was your guide on the most common pieces of gym accessories that you will see people use in the gym. If you liked it and you found it helpful, please drop a like on the video, and then if you want to see more stuff like this, subscribe as well. If you think I missed anything, drop a comment down below and let me know. But I'm going to finish this video by saying you can own all of this equipment and still lift like an idiot. So don't be an idiot. Use your equipment wisely and learn how to do correct form first. Goodbye.